Hey, everyone. That was the most fascinating thing when I got ready to turn on the mic. As soon as I hit unmute, then all of a sudden, my neighbors turned on something, and I started hearing this sound. When you hear water pressure? Well, that was the type of sound that I was hearing. And I said to myself, you just got to be kidding me. This can't be happening right at this moment in time. Anyway, hi, everyone. I am NJ Evans, and this is the evening drive home. And today happens to be Thanksgiving's Day. Hmm. And we'll talk about that at the end. But let me tell you the reason why I'm bringing it to your attention. I decided that I wanted to say happy birthday to a few special people in my life. Today's their birthday. Aren't they fortunate? What a day they're born on. All right. And also, today is the 99th year of the Macy's Day Parade. I am a New Yorker. And I just said to myself, you got to be kidding me. 99 years? Wow. So this is the first time in many, many years I even decided I would peruse, because it wasn't really called watching the parade. Lots of new things, different things. But what it did was it was nostalgic. It brought back memories. It actually brought back some trigger points. And I wanted to share that with you. And you don't have a choice at this point, unless you decide that you're going to veer off. Now, and then you'd miss all of this excitement. Anyhow, back to thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. For the first time, I'm watching the Macy's Day Parade in the comfort of my home, where it's 72 degrees and no wind and no freezing. Oh my gosh, the cold, the cold. I remember it so well. Many, 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 many years. So, what was the trigger? The trigger is that was my first experience as a photographer, as a camera person. My first job for my director, producer, who happened to be my father, was to actually shoot the Macy's Day Parade. So let me just bring you back in time for a minute. So the camera person, myself, I was under the direction of the event with my mentor and instructor and my father, Matty B. And with us was our associate producer, my brother, the one that follows right behind me. I don't think he'd want his name mentioned at this point. I, as a 10-year-old, was on my father's shoulder. I had the camera, and I was just amazed at how I could look across and above all the crowd. And plus, it was a lot of people there, lots and lots. So visualize this. Many, many people. If I was on the ground standing next to my father, I'd probably come up to everybody's waist, or maybe a little under their armpit, a little bit. Anyway, I was up on his shoulder. My brother, he had the other viewpoint. Once Nat put me up on his shoulders, then my brother came up on Nat's waist, and that's how we stood for about an hour to 2 hours. Brave man, I must say. But anyhow, I had already received my instructions on the way to the parade and even prior to that, because I had testing grounds. I had my grandmother's parties that I had the camera and I would be downstairs and I would shoot these events. And when my dad realized that I could actually shoot, he said, "Oh my goodness." And he became the star and I became the photographer, literally. Anyway, back to the story. So I am up on his shoulders and I have the camera and he's saying to me, "Nat, can you see anything?" I said, "No, not yet, Dad." And so then he goes, "Okay, well, let me know when you can see something." And he check on my brother and see how he's doing. And he was fine. But neither my brother nor myself even considered the idea that maybe my father was carrying a lot of weight. But I figured like this, I was a little skinny person and so was my brother. So there wasn't a lot of weight. Anyhow, I wasn't even that interested. I was more interested in the mission at hand. And I knew that I had to do good. I had to really do good. It was just something inside of me that wanted to excel. Anyway, so the parade began, and I began also. I did my little countdown in my head, as my father had shared with me. And he said to me, "You ready, Nat?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can you see anything?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "How close?" I said, "Pretty close." He goes, "Okay. Well, you know when to start. You're on your own." I said, "Okay." And I started shooting, and I shot I don't even know how long those films were in those days, but I must have shot maybe about two or three rolls in for that parade. Okay, get off his shoulders, change the film and then come back up on his shoulders, that kind of stuff. He would hold all the exposed films in his pockets and in his location. My brother, as I said before, he was the associate producer, so he had other responsibilities to make sure that he just kept us on track. Now, I say all of that to say to you, this was my moment in time. This was how I became even more engulfed and emerged or submerged into that whole arena of photography. And my photography started with the film as well as with still photography. And I had so much fun that day. I mean, really, I had so much fun. I couldn't even wait to get back to the house so that we can tell my mom exactly what transpired because she was preparing the dinner. And that was going to be the activities. We were going to talk about all the events that took place and the different things that we saw. And we were kids. And we didn't understand the particulars about the word Thanksgiving. We really didn't. We were just kids having a fun, having a good time. And later on, we would learn about this. But I want to say this to you. Once we got back to the house, Natty B as the director producer, myself as the camera operator, and my brother as the associate producer, we felt accomplished. We did something that had not been done, at least not in our family. This was the first time we stepped out on this photography thing because later we would find out that in World War II, my father was one of the photographers. Now, I didn't go into exactly what he did. I know he was a sergeant. I know that he was over there in the Philippine theater. And that was enough for me. But he came back alive and he came back with a whole lot of gifts. And he just decided to disseminate or spread them with between myself and my brothers. So today was the first time I was reminiscing about that period of time when I debuted as a camera photographer because it seemed like it just followed me all the way, all the way through in my lifetime. And I mean that sincerely. Even up to the point where I was at the Library of Congress as a staff photographer shooting stills. And there was this big event that was taking place, and I invited him to come down since I was in DC and he was still living in New York. And when I received a congressional pin for the event, I think all of us did. I don't know what the particulars was, but I know I had one. And what I did was I turned around and I pinned him. He started crying. And I didn't understand why he was crying. Yeah, but I did know this. That was my way of saying to him, thank you, because to me, that pin I would have never acquired, never received had it not been for him. And the looseness that he had on his long rope in terms of what I could and could not do with my photography, what was acceptable and wasn't not acceptable, how to tell the story. Because I was a creative person and I was always writing, but now I was using a camera to be my pencil or my pen. And that's what I was trying to, not trying, but I'm explaining to a couple of people who are interested in photography. So back to my story. This is the first time I'm reminiscing about that period of time. It almost seems like a very, very long time ago. And then maybe again, it is a very long time ago. But I wanted to go back to what I started to say about the word Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, there are those that celebrate it and there are those that don't. I understand both sides. My take is the thought that the Iroquois, the Hurons, and all the Mohawks, Shinnecox, all those American Indians that resided on that East Coast, when they did what they did in terms of the visitors that came to this country, and when they brought, this is how I take what transpired what later became known as the Thanksgiving celebration. Well, those natives, as they want to call them, the Aborigines and the Nijis, what they did was they were celebrating and trying to help somebody learn how to survive in a land that they were not familiar with. They didn't understand what was happening here. They didn't know how to handle the winters. They would have died. but they had help. So from that perspective, I'm looking at the Thanksgiving. I'm not going beyond that point because that's ignorance. That's my take on it. Because you don't try to hurt people who are trying to help you. But that tends to be human nature in some arenas. So anyway, I just want to stop right there and I just say to you, it was a gift when the Nijis came forward and they had the food and everything and the all the things that these new people to their land would need in order to survive the winter, and then was turned on in the fashion that it was, meant they didn't understand that the gifts came from a purity of heart. Pureness of heart is a whole nother ballpark. So anyway, let me stop there. We all know the rest of that story. So with this pure heart, we're celebrating a new thing, a new day today. At least I am, me and my people that I have. And we're sharing and celebrating it from the perspective that I said. The Nijis actually was saying, here, let me help you with an open hand. Okay, with an open hand. They helped them survive. They actually helped them survive. So, without any further ado, I want to say to you a happy holiday. I'm glad that you enjoyed your food, whatever it is. I'm quite sure you had a great meal today because a lot of stores were closed. So I think that you must have had an opportunity. And plus, my neighbor next door, who's a very, very quiet guy, and his lady, they're very quiet people, but they're celebrating over there. And I was saying, man, I wonder if I'm going to have an opportunity to do what I want to do very briefly. So this little moment in time, I'm going to say to you, I enjoyed just having you to experience what I had experienced. I want to say thanks to the universe, thanks to my parents, and definitely thanks to my father for giving me a gift that started at the age of 10 and came all the way through to my present moment in time in 2025. Much love and light to each and every one of you. Enjoy yourselves, enjoy your day, and remember about love and light and clarity of vision. And release the past. But don't close your eyes, but release the past. I'm NJ Evans. This is the evening drive home. Enjoy yourself. Ciao, guys.